Welcome to Mindshifters Radio. Today is Friday, May the 1st, 2026, first day of May. Welcome, Michael. Welcome, Joan. Welcome, Susan. You're muted, Michael.
Okay, I'm back. Lincoln just decided to come over and lay on my chest and my jaw, so my voice is a little tweaked. It's because I've got Lincoln laying on top of me.
Awesome.
So, yeah, it is awesome. So blessed.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. I could actually just spend the next hour and be here and breathe with him. It'd be awesome. However, we get to play with you guys, and I'm glad you're here, Joan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Been working a lot in my garden. I don't get as much done as I used to, but I keep working at it.
Nice. Well, we've been doing quite a bit of work in the garden too, and everything. Actually, Jeannie's been doing more than I have, but it's moving along, and we got tomato flowers rocking, and all kinds of beautiful colors coming up, and the butterfly garden is just massive with milkweed plants this year. So we should have a repeat of last year where Ari was able to witness a monarch butterfly open up and come out of his cocoon.
Oh, wow.
Sit there and dry its wings and then fly away. It was awesome for her. It was awesome for us. For us too. It's the first time I've ever seen it, but that she was able to get to see that was just really sweet.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. So anything on your mind today? Anything exciting happening in your world?
Well, I'm just excited every day by my garden, even though it's really overcome with weeds. I'm going to get some help this weekend. But there's so much that's exciting about any kind of garden.
Yes.
And I'm going to refill all my hummingbird feeders. And I think I'm going to plant some milkweed too. I've got some butterfly plants. And I usually have a few butterflies no matter what I do, monarchs. But have you ever been a beekeeper, Michael, Jeannie?
No, but part of what we've done since we've gotten here is we've really built a native species garden. I've looked at beekeeping, but bees, what people generally think of as honeybees, are actually an invasive species that are kind of on the destructive side for native bees. And there are actually over 10,000 species of native bees in America, but most of them don't live in hives with other bees like the commercial bees do. They're actually lone in-ground dwellers, and they're like literally 1,000 times more efficient at pollinating. Like, for instance, in one case, there was an article about I forget how big the apple orchard was, but several dozen acres of apple orchard, and what they were saying was that the standard thing now in the commercial industry is you hire the person who's a beekeeper, and they bring their truck with all their bees in it, and they let the bees go, and they release 100,000 bees, and 100,000 bees for a fee will pollinate the apple trees. But
Wow.
and my numbers may be off, but if I remember correctly from this article, what they were saying was that if the natural local bees if we stop spraying and we stop destroying their habitat, if the USDA would stop spraying glyphosate on millions of acres of our forest, that same acreage would be pollinated by 2,000 native species bees. It took 100,000 to hire of the invasive species, but 2,000 native species bees, if we were doing something to take care of them, would take care of pollinating that whole orchard and would cost the farmer nothing. It's like everything goes to how can we turn it into a buck? How can we make money from it? As opposed to how can we take care of the environment? So one of the things we've done here, we first came here 7 years ago, we had about, maybe 120 square feet of gardens. And the property that we're on is a hill that is totally, once you go down an inch or so below the invasive species lawn, there's no soil. It's total red and gray clay. So we've probably built close to 30 tons of soil. We have huge compost bins that we turn and use and keep cycling into soil. And we're now up over, probably about 5,500, maybe a little more square feet of gardens now. And about a third of it is dedicated to food production for our own use. But the rest of it is in support of native species, bees and birds and, the critters that are being wiped out by commercial farming, by all the spraying that's going on, by habitat loss and such. So we've been doing our best to shift that around and do something different.
So my grandfather was a beekeeper. He had the beehive, the boxes.
Right.
Those are not native.
No, they're brought in from Europe.
Really?
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
They're brought in from Europe, and the only way they can survive is if they have a keeper that, that takes care of them. And, usually what they do is either use the bees' honey or they rent them out. As I say, a lot of commercial operations today now will hire the beekeeper to come and truck the bees in to pollinate what the native species used to pollinate, but the native species have been destroyed. I'll send you a link. Jeannie's written up quite a bit of it on our webpage. The property here is a registered national park, what they call a homegrown national park. There's a university professor that has, he's the one who educated us. We were doing some research on what to do with our garden space and our lawn space. We've eradicated about a third of the lawn on the property. When you look at lawns, they are invasive. They do nothing but consume chemicals and water. They produce nothing except they become a habitat for pests. So they end up generally being sprayed with toxic spray that runs off into rivers. And I mean, it's just totally crazy. And it's interesting if you look into the history of, why do so many people have lawns? Why does it seem like you have to have a lawn? Well, it actually goes back in England to where, if you were going to eat, you had to have a garden. But there were a few people who had the money that they could eat off of other people and didn't need gardens. So they had these fancy things, these upscale things that everybody envied called lawns.
Uh-huh.
And that's where the whole idea of a lawn began. Oh, we don't need to have food production. We've got money. And, and when you really look at the destructive effect of lawns. So anyway, look up Homegrown National Park, and there's a university professor, there are millions and millions of acres of lawns in America that do nothing but consume water. And I don't know if you've been watching the news lately, but we're at the point where 48 out of 50 states are now in deep or very soon to be projected deep droughts, which is just going to create, we're coming up against some pretty heavy duty stuff if we don't wake up soon in America, and how we treat our environment and how we treat our water supply. There are places in the world where people are fighting wars over fresh water. Only about, I think it's 2% of the world's water is fresh water. And millions and millions and millions of gallons are being used to pour on and keep green this invasive lawn that could be a habitat, could be chemical free, and could be making a contribution to the environment, to the earth.
Michael, your microphone must have moved.
Yeah, Lincoln just kind of, is that better?
Yes.
Lincoln rolled over on my chest. So anyway, it's an interesting to look at. I forget the professor's name, but if you look up Homegrown National Park, this guy's really doing some great education work, and we've got links to all of that in our site. I can't see the chat room, but Jeannie's probably already put a link into the chat room to our Homegrown National Park. We've got it named after Jeannie's mom and dad.
His
And
name's Doug Tallamy.
Tallamy, that's it. Yeah, Doug Tallamy. Really doing some great work, great education.
Homegrown National
Mm-hmm.
Parks. Well, there's only about 100 houses in the development where I live, and a lot of people are older and have difficulty keeping up their lawns, although they get them cut frequently. Many of them are cutting weeds. And I've often thought, why don't we just plant monkey grass or something that, is pretty hardy, and you don't have to fertilize and do all that stuff.
Yeah, that would definitely be a step forward in a lot of cases. Well, anyway, that's one aspect of this work. There's an article on our website that I wrote entitled "Healing from the Ground Up," and a lot of people think of healing as healing of their bodies, but don't think of their bodies as being an extension of and coming out of the earth, and that health really begins in the soil.
Right.
And if we don't have healthy soil, which if you go into the grocery store in most cities in this country, virtually everything that is of a fruit or vegetable nature is grown not on soil, but on dirt. And there's a difference between dirt and soil, and that is that soil has organisms that make the earth alive. Elsewise, most of commercial food production, the first thing they do is they spray, the 10 gallons per acre of glyphosate, a cancer-causing chemical, they pour on each acre of soil to make sure that everything in that soil is dead. There's no life left in it. It's now dirt. And then use chemicals to fertilize and make something look like food. If we don't change that, if we're not healing from the ground up, we're in trouble. And the commercial interests that run the game, I don't know if you've seen just recently that Monsanto Bayer that manufactures glyphosate, that it's amazing. I mean, there are hundreds of $1 million plus awards because people have gotten cancer from using this stuff. And you can still walk into most big box stores that handle, seeds and those sorts of things. You can walk in and still buy glyphosate off the shelf. And a certain politician just proposed that we protect the manufacturers of this product from responsibility for their cancer-causing product. and it's being used in the millions of gallons in our national forests to kill off everything in the forest except the trees that then can be harvested for money, replanted and harvested for money if you don't have those pesky things called animals and underbrush and such in the way.
Right.
It's like, the whole thing is a big wake-up call from literally from the ground up.
I don't know if you saw this, Michael, but there's actually a case before the Supreme Court right now concerning
Yep.
glyphosate. So we'll get to see how much they are actually bought off if we don't already know.
Yeah, well, it's actually the official position of a certain group of people from the government is that Monsanto, Bayer should have immunity from lawsuits over glyphosate use, and it's promoting literally the use of more of it.
Right. And it sort of parallels, I think this goes back to George Bush the first and Eli Lilly, but, vaccine makers were giving immunity over lawsuits too from damages,
Yep.
which is why we have the secret vaccine court, which isn't really secret, but it's secret because once you get a payment out of it, you cannot talk about it at all.
Right. Yep. You're not allowed to expose it. Definitely lots of big wake-up calls going on. So healing from the ground up is part and parcel of the process and part and parcel of this work.
Michael, I inherited some land from my family. Actually, my son has, but he doesn't live here. He lives in DC. And it's on a big creek that used to be extremely polluted. Maybe it still is, but not like it used to be. Supposedly, they cleaned it up in the past 50 years. But I've been wondering, what could we do with that land?
Well, I wish that Carrie Lee were on the call. Carrie used to was the executive director of a foundation that restored land to prairie and to native grasslands. She's the person to talk to about that, and what it would take. I don't know how far you want to go with it, but how to put it in a trust so that it's permanently taken care of and becomes a contributor to the health of our environment rather than, put into commercial hands that will destroy whatever needs to be destroyed in order to make a buck from it. So we'll put you in touch with Carrie.
Yeah, I have Carrie's number.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, well, that'd probably be a good conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to catch up with her anyway. That's good.
How's everybody else doing? Anybody got anything exciting to report? Use my noise here.
Michael, are you and Jeannie eating all raw food?
No.
No.
No. I'm getting ready to post or to bring into the screen. Give me a second here. Let me find it. Zoom. And here's why.
That's why his voice is kind of
My
scattered.
voice sounds a little funny. This is where Lincoln has decided he wants to rest while I'm doing the show. So I have a headset on and the microphone right behind his head.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet, pretty amazing. I don't know if you remember in the early days of Arya's life, for at least the first couple of years, 2.5 years or so, she would be asleep on my shoulder. She'd like to sleep in the crook of my arm during this radio show. So she got 2 years of this conversation every day. And Lincoln likes to position himself a little differently than she did, but this is our norm. Anyone got anything exciting to share with us? Let me see if I can delete this picture.
Well, so
There we go. Okay.
just to follow up on the bee things, I should just look for native plants that would attract natural bees. I mean, native bees.
That would be the thing to do, yes.
Yeah, one of the things
And
that we do, we have a local, it's called Red Apple Barn, and they sell really reasonable starter plants. And every one of them, though, before I buy it, I always ask Google, is this plant, and I give it the name, is it native to Virginia? And if it's not, we don't buy it. And if it is, then it goes in our garden, or we've got a tower on our porch an herb tower.
Oh,
And yeah, so it's right outside the door. It's easy to access.
that's wonderful.
anyone else have a thought to share with us before I'm actually have another direction to go, but I'd like to open it to anything that anyone has on their mind. Well, if we don't have any other thoughts, then I'm going to invite everybody to just join me in moving into your breath. And just let your jaw relax. One of the things we've been working with Lincoln with is to learn to rely on his breath for safety and security when he bumps into something or hurts himself, to allow himself to just soften and take a few breaths. So I'm just going to invite everybody to step into moving into connecting to Rukadkucha and be willing to alter your state, moving into where you consciously, purposely choose to focus in a space of active present love. And as you choose that focus to move into that breath that in Aramaic that was referred to as the set apart breath for the human being. And allow yourself to move into that state where your focus becomes the inner world, that you step into the inside, by allowing yourself to follow the breath gently into the center line of your body as you breathe in. And allow yourself to bring your awareness as you take your breath in. Just let your physiology open to receive that breath. Now you open all the way down to the pelvic floor, up through the heart, up through the center of the head. You allow the in-breath and the out-breath to just be gently connected. Breathing through your mouth. And let awareness rise gently. Just beneath the crown of the head. Just notice what it feels like to pause and experience that breath in your structure. Allow yourself to open to a different state than your normal awareness. And let yourself drop into a state of rest in your breath. And listen to your body if it chooses to shift and align itself with the breath. And as you breathe that breath focused in love, allow everything in you to step into a coherent state with that movement of breath. You may even allow yourself to step into that space of being breathed, moving into that neural integration state that stabilizes your physiology, brings you into coherence, and lets loose of resistance. Word I mentioned yesterday in Aramaic, Baranasha. Well, it's been interpreted by the Greeks as the Son of Man is really referring to our natural state before the world moved in with its hostilities and fears and made those states normal. This is a state, Baranasha, that described the human that is naturally aligned in the active presence of love. Resistance drops. Allow that the good factor to kick in. As you allow the breath to just gently move through your physiology, the predictive loops of the mind cycling, always looking for danger, slowly let loose of control. Brain waves integrate. Red assessment gives way to Rockma. Gently taking time to spend in that connected breath allows the mind to move out of that state we refer to on the worksheet as put forward by David Bond of sustained incoherence. And allow your breath to just entrain into a state that is coherent, based in that selected, chosen breath of love. Allow yourself to enter into the practice and move to a new baseline. Allow yourself to feel the coherence that results from gently engaging in your breath. Allow yourself to listen with a different set of ears to the instructions and the information given to you by your breath. Breath aligned with love causes autonomic regulation to stabilize. Synchronizes brain waves. Interference circuits in the brain quiets. As direct access to breath intelligence expands. Coherent breath unlocks access because that coherent breath transmutes all interference or what has been called sin. Incoherent energies in the presence of that connected breath just dissipate, disappear. And as you allow that to become a daily practice, existence in a baseline of coherence becomes the norm. The uplink to the creator's mind becomes the natural state. Connected through the breath. Effortless, just gentle receiving of that connected breath. We basically have two operating systems. The world tends to set us up and we buy into the operating system of carbon-based memory, of intellect, and of held breath. Allow the breath to direct you to adjust your internal posture. It's loose of carbon-based memory as the dominant network. Letting go of the need to be on guard. And to move into that space where everything, including your breath, is fueled by the presence of love. Allow yourself deeper and deeper access to that alternative operating system that is based in light. Allow the Rockman network within you to stabilize. Notice that each time you repeat that practice, it becomes easier to access. The neural pathway strengthened. The nervous system learns to live in a new state. And the brain encodes this new state as an always available network. As you breathe, you may notice gentle physiological releases. As baseline coherence increases. New listening opens as the breath gives instructions. You feel new movement of energies as pulses increase throughout your structure. Tap into those, you listen to those pulses and realize they give you access to new information in a different way. The old AI system of carbon-based memory did. Carbon-based memory interference drops to zero. Any quality of energy that never belonged within you is below the threshold where it can fire. And as you breathe, you're directly instructed by Rukakucha how to stabilize this creator design neural architecture. your brain to shift from predictive modeling to presence. Now present moment integration to be the dominant operating system. A space where the 9-bit mind, normally occupied by carbon-based memories perception, is clean and open and available to the mind, connected to actuality. That was called the mind of Christ. Hearing the breath of the Creator, you entrain to the breath of the Creator. Just breath based in love. Our breath becomes the teacher. In this state, healing flows naturally. Compassion is presence throughout your physiology. The reflection of the state of being breath. Words simply dissolve into interior stillness. As you step into deeper and deeper states of eternal alignment. Literally held by the breath of that in which we live, move, and have our being. This is a state we told would be the state of prayer in which our whole lives would be lived. Prayer was never intended as begging. It was a method of stabilizing presence at the center of our attention. Rukatakucha entrains a rhythm, regulates the autonomic tone, and resolves through transmutation any mental fragmentation. Allow yourself to entertain the thought that perhaps a different state than the state the world has entrained us into is our natural state. A state where prayer prays itself. Breath breathes you. As the breath reaches deeper and deeper into a tissue level, into the genetic level, breath dysfunction, where the breath can be hijacked, is replaced by the gentle, safe, connected space where fear or hostility circuits in the brain and nervous system are weakened. Areas of the brain coordinate. The voice based in this state of integration and coherence becomes a biological bridge, bringing spoken words into expression in the world. Vagal nerve awakened through the presence of awakened breath. Modulates the parasympathetic nervous system, regulates coherent heart rhythm, lung function, and perfects digestion. Recognize the power of your voice. This is biophysics. Speech is not just communication. It's a regulatory tool that organizes cellular matter and dictates a systematic life or death balance, depending on the source of the voice and the breath that flows through, literally, your voice box. Our life and death truly is in our words, in our breath. A branch of the vagal nerve that runs everything that brings longevity runs right through the voice box. And it down to the heart, the lungs, and the digestive tract. Interference by words spoken in hostility or fear disrupt that whole system. When allowed to be regulated by that set apart breath that the Creator designed for us, these systems produce stable perception based in actuality, clear cognition, integrated emotion, awareness beyond the 9-bit mind. Dysregulated, they fragment into productive threat modeling, hypervigilance, emotional reactivity, narrowed perception. In either case, the architecture is working perfectly. Which architecture is called into action is determined by what we value most. Yeshua knew exactly what he was saying when he said, "My words are your perfect life." Breathing with you and receiving those words.
Thank you for that.
Breathing with each of you. Reminding you that you are the light of the world. When you allow your light to align with your voice, to align and be sourced by the shared breath of the Creator, your light shines throughout the creation. And so it is. And how's everybody doing? Anyone having to share a report? We've got about 3 minutes. Yesterday I talked about the Barnasha, the word that represents, or has been translated by the Greeks as son of man, but really represents the state we each need to return to function as human beings. And about 4 o'clock this morning, it woke me up with instructions to do this today. Well, I've been breathing with it ever since. Joining each and every one of you returning to your highest natural state, letting go of the norms of the world physiologically, mentally, emotionally, language, intelligence, just letting go of those things. They're of one operating system, an operating system we're not really designed for. Thank you for being here to give me a chance to share this today. Holding each of you in a blessing.